didactic again.
Oh, hello, hello, hello.
Oh my God. So we finished a podcast
Last week now.
last week. Yeah, we finished this podcast last week, and far out, we ended on the topic of what the hell could Tartaria have been a floating concept? Could it have been a floating civilization? Could that make sense as to what these city structures look like and the architecture? And today we're just going to deep dive into this topic because it caught my attention, Cambell. I was really excited and I could not sleep the next night. So I went deep diving.
I know. I wake up to about 10 emails. Yeah, I mean, airships. I mean, and you can see behind me that way. Why are they always ships? I mean, they're in the sky, and we sort of covered the topic of was it an airborne society that were literally floating around in these big airships or air cities? Maybe there's all these stories of, cities in the sky, cloud cities, gods sitting on clouds, people coming down from the sky. The floating city that we got the footage from China a couple of years ago. Just so much. And then we got onto superheroes, and kids always want to fly, right? And people always have dreams of flying, and all the superheroes fly, and all the angels, and the angels have wings, but they were the superheroes of the past, and now our superheroes have capes instead. But it's the same concept. It's up in the air, flying around.
I know. And we kind of got to this concept when we were looking, just to summarize last week, we were looking at why this Tartarian civilization so highly engineered and so advanced in the building structures as we see it on this realm, what's left, that they didn't incorporate bathrooms, plumbing, sewage. There was no evidence. There's no evidence of farming or old orchards that have lasted, or any sort of food production, no kitchens. And then we started looking at the fact there's no language represented. And so it's almost like the buildings themselves were not intended to be lived in or utilized by a living human form.
Yeah. And it's been something that I've been thinking about for a long time, because a lot of these buildings, it's like that there's no rooms as we would sort of, think of rooms or bedrooms, definitely bathrooms, kitchens, toilet, all that kind of stuff definitely isn't there. And of course we talk about them as machines. So clearly there was access to get into them, but that could have just been for maintenance, for the chapels. It could have been to get the healing, but they don't look like places that were inhabited, that were lived in. They look like self-sufficient running machines, right? And so we threw it out there. Were they an airborne civilization? And all these towers we see everywhere, all this antiquitech, they were just docking stations and refueling stations.
That all look really similar to lighthouses. Like when you look if you think Tartarian architecture, you definitely think of towers and domes. And on these towers, they're so beautiful. There's little marine windows, and they're very ornate, and there's little doorways, and then it goes up even further, and there's usually landings and balconies, and entirely impractical for colonizing, first, colonizing Australia, to come in and even give a shit about that sort of element. Like, why would you bother adding that next layer of the towers onto these town halls and libraries and fucking all these structures that we see? But systematically in every single area of the realm, the structures mimic the same thing. They have what appears to be a form of a lighthouse on top of every building.
Yeah. And there's a lot of evidence out there that they've taken tons of these off. Like if you saw the Melbourne video, I was just amazed at how many were still in Melbourne, up on tall buildings, on 10, 12-story buildings. They were everywhere. And we've seen them in houses. We've all seen the red brick house with the little turret at the front, coming up. And like I said, that these things have been taken off more buildings probably than they're left on.
Absolutely.
And what's the point of them? Clock towers? That's it. That's pretty much the explanation, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it seems exactly. So, and then you've got these huge cavernous type structures also with the Tartarian architecture, where they've got huge, unbelievable doorways and entrance points, massive columns, and then these massive domed like spaces in these buildings, like exactly what you could imagine you would need to actually bring in a flying vessel in docking it undercover, or to disembark, or to do repairs, or to store. Like, it definitely feels like they're built with that. You know, if we look at modern day airport hangars, like, and how gross and ugly they are, but they're built to a certain scale to deal with airplanes. Well, our buildings here seem to do exactly the same thing when we start conceptualizing Airbuses and flying machines.
Yep. And pretty much the same shape, at least, you know, an airplane hangar's a half dome, you know, that's on top of all these buildings. And a lot of them are glass, right? Now, why would they be glass? I mean, if you put an airship inside there and it's full of helium and it's cold, it's going to shrink.
Yeah.
It's going to hit the floor. But if it's warm, it's going to stay floating, right?
Good point. Good point.
Who knows? So were these places where, you know, they were floating around if they needed repairs, or where they were building them as well, or, you know, is that what these were? You take your airship in, get a repair, hang around for a day or two, and then take off and go to where you're going. Because, you know, all these glass buildings, we know, again, that they've taken down more than we've got left, but there's no explanation for them.
Yep.
It's literally like it was for a World's Fair so people could walk through, and then, but it was made of glass. So it was basically a glass, you know, a hothouse.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And look, if you think also about the scale of these buildings, you know, we've been saying that they've been built by a much larger race of beings. But, you know, if we look at it from this perspective, like, the scale simply is to, like, be able to cater for flying machines. Like, that they actually they're very tall and they go down, but the Tartarian structures are massive. Like, they're gigantic. They are. So if you look at all the old new cities here in Australia, and you look at the scale of these structures, like, they are so, like, humans are dwarfed. They're dwarfed. So it may not just be that they were built by bigger people. It may be that they were intended to be used by flying machines.
Big machinery, yeah.
So, like, Campbell, I went online when we had this conversation, and like, I was like, oh my God, overlaying all of our cities with like floating cities and Airbuses. And so I just, like, started Googling Airbuses, and immediately I was absolutely overwhelmed by how much artwork is out there all about flying machines and Airbuses and floating cities. Like,
steampunk stuff, yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, the whole steampunk movement. Like, what is that? Is that just the memory of this coming through?
Is the thing. It's got it, because we're not told that era ever existed.
Yeah.
Are we? Like that steampunk era, it's not in the history books. It's not a part of anything.
No.
It's just this memory, right? I mean, it has to be. It seems like a collective memory.
It does. Yes.
And most people just love steampunk. It just makes sense. It looks good. It's opens your mind up. You start, you know, like, getting all these, you know, ideas and things. But yeah, I mean, it's with so much things, you know, things that make sense to us, and it's normally because we remember something.
Yeah.
We're remembering something, putting it back together.
100%. And so, like, as I looked at all these amazing visuals, I was just like, and you know, one thing you know about them is it just captures your imagination. Like, if you think Tartaria at this point has captured your imagination, introducing the idea of it being an airborne civilization, like, that's a whole new amazing level. And, you know, I'm very convinced that everything we're uncovering is, like, completely about invigorating and re-inspiring that beautiful innocence that has been, like, suppressed and has been a big part of the programming density that we got trapped in, right? So, like, when I looked for this artwork, what else, like, struck me immediately is the amount of fucking literature and fiction coming out of the late 1800s into the early 1900s, all about floating cities. Like, it was like, out of nowhere, like, if we know our timeline, people were reset, then they came back in, and they're all kind of, like, you know, being programmed and manipulated from the get-go. They don't even know what's fucking going on. Like, I just don't imagine me walking around, like, you know, startled, little, sort of very confused in this sort of robotic manner of just doing what we're told. But exactly then, there was just so much context around floating cities out of fucking nowhere. Can you imagine a race of humans who have just been reset suddenly out of nowhere, just like making up this amazing concept of floating cities. It's like, it doesn't make sense to the cognitive dissonance or the cognitive process of that neocortex, you know, like mentality at that level of everyone's programming.
You focus on rebuilding and just getting a life back that can, you know, sustain you. Basically, you're not thinking about writing books about floating cities, apart from the fact that no one was supposed to be able to write or read back then. But I mean, hey, and then also songs, like there's all these songs about these people flying around in airships and stuff, and it's a completely different story than we've been told. Like when you look, it's like everything, right? When you look back into it, there's all this information. And I mean, another thing that just crossed my mind was, you know, Elysium, that movie.
Yep.
You know, same thing, right? These people, but I mean, in that they were the sort of, you know, the gods, the deletes, up in the sky, right? Those more powerful. But every god story, which, you know, a small g god is just someone with more tech or more powers than us that we don't understand. They always come down from above, right?
Always from above. So let me show you. So I just typed into Google floating cities, and this came up. Can you see my screen? Yeah, this came up in Wikipedia, right? And it was like a whole lot of information, but you know, you can see how ancient it is. So like there's floating islands and cities in Homer's Odyssey, right? That's very long time ago. Now they're talking a bit about floating as in not stable on the ground and also floating in the sky. We've got Dr. Doodletoo, you know, the classic literature Dr. Doodletoo. Like that came out, like how long ago did that come out? 1922. Yep. And there's like a full-on floating like island in there. Wonder Woman had the whole like reference to Wonder Woman was floating cities. You've got this like amazing Gulliver's Travels. Yep. And apparently Gulliver's Travels came out apparently in 1726. But anyway, so they had a whole island city called Laputa. And this is just Laputa, and this is described in 1726, right? And it's like completely gives you this whole download of how it was done. So using magnetic levitation. So I'm like, think about this, 1726, and in the science fiction, they're talking about magnetic levitation, you know, and artificial magnetism. Yeah. So like, you know, then you've got
how it says it was primarily a fictional device.
Yes, exactly, because that became an actual scientifically
magnetic levitation. Yeah.
Which, if we look now at the buildings that we're talking about, like, you know, how would they have done it? So we've looked at this Tartaria structures, and we know that they somehow the living waters are very important. We're always immersed and surrounded with waters. Then we look at, you know, that we know that buildings themselves are a machine. We know that the buildings themselves operated as a technology, right? So why? What were they doing? And we've not been able to answer that question yet. We haven't answered that question. What if all of these buildings, machines, technology were there to actually levitate and keep these cities and air buses and air homes in the air? Like, you can imagine them acting as a magnetic levitation device. You can imagine them channeling that energy up and out. When I think of the pyramids, I think of the same thing. Pyramids everywhere, you know, and we know that there's this concept of like this huge beam of, we say light, but it could have been
electromagnetic force.
Exactly. Boom. And then we look at the living waters, and we think clean, fresh living waters, but it could have been like salt water, because salt is a conductor. Battery.
Salt bridges. I mean, this is a thing that, I mean, we've got all the arches, you know, there was talk, are they magnets? You know, we haven't cracked one open yet, but also a lot of the star forts, you know, they're big circles, you know, they just look like ring magnets and things. There's these funny ones everywhere. I mean, how would that be? I mean, because, you know, we all talk about what was the big, you know, reset we all know about was the flood.
Yep.
well, if the earth got flooded, you might not want to live on it. You might want to go up to the sky. And then we
Yeah.
get things like the Nazca lines and the star forts that are
Yep.
all pointing somewhere.
And carved
Was
into
that
the
navigation?
ground.
Yeah. Was that their navigation, their map?
Yeah, yeah. And they couldn't actually see, like you couldn't have done that from the ground, like the
Yeah,
Nazca
exactly.
lines. They
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
be done from above and down. And
yeah.
then we've got our modern crop circles, which no one's really understood yet, as in what they are. Like there's many different theories. And obviously we don't advocate for these alien UFO style genres. But like imagine, and we don't have, and the other thing that's always been a question is what happened to all the bodies? Where's all the evidence of the people?
I mean, there's videos of crop circles being formed by these little sprites, I guess, right? Little energy balls.
Yep.
Which basically is just showing that there is energy. It's a vortex, right? It's an energy vortex point. So, if you were looking for electromagnetic lift and stuff, you'd probably go to those places, and those are probably the places that the stars are built on top of to reinforce and magnify all that, energy. How's that?
I mean, really,
star to lift you to the stars.
I know, so if we conceptualize that Tartaria architecture is actually machinery to propel and levitate and support a floating civilization, and then we cross-reference that with all the notions of like Asgard and Baru and all the mythology around all the
trees, lots and lots of world tree, with different levels, and
the sentient beings, the world trees. And then we've got Jack and the Beanstalk and how they lived. The giants came down from a higher realm. We've got the gods. We've got the superheroes. We've got the Viking mythology. We've got the Thors and all that. I mean, so much about this is in the sky. And Campbell, fucking, do we know anything about our sky? Like, all we know.
Yeah. Nothing. Well, nothing, because all we know is what NASA tells us. But I mean, that's another point though, right? Like, where is all the focus at the moment?
Yep.
Where's all this, where do they want us to think all the focus is anyway, right?
Yep.
It's up high, up in the upper atmosphere. And I saw this video a few days ago, and there's these, it's like a film, of plastic. And when you look, this guy was looking through, he's putting it through his camera, and he was showing the sky, and it was just a clear sky, and he put this film down in front, and there were 2 UFOs sitting in the sky. So they were, but you couldn't see them unless you looked through this particular lens. So we don't even know, I mean the whole UFO, what are UFOs, right?
Well, they're flying machines, aren't they? They're flying they're
Airbuses. Cigar-shaped UFOs. How often did we hear that? And as soon as we discovered airships, they stopped calling them that, didn't they? They don't hear about it anymore because maybe they're airships, right? And maybe, if they were up in the air, maybe they figured a way through and they are traveling to other lands and stuff. We just don't know. But are they still there on a different? Is that what we're looking for? Is that what raising vibration? Because that's, again, all the language, right? Ascending, raising, it's all about, lofty.
Oh, it's so lofty. And there's just so much. I was going to show you something else. Like the other thing that I looked at, because I've remembered seeing this as I've been doing my research, is so many statues are pointing upwards.
Yes, of course. They all are. Yeah.
So many Tartarian old statues. They're all looking up in the air, always pointing up.
A ton of like Christian artwork and statues as well, all pointing up.
Yeah, all pointing up. So like we see this very consistently, always. And I remember going to the cemetery here in Melbourne, and the oldest one I could find, and the oldest memorials all had statues pointing upwards. And it was just really interesting. And of course, we just put that down to the heavens and religion. But fucking hell, man, like what if what we're talking about is the origin of us? And the other thing which was interesting, Campbell, I think we talked about it last week, was that when you talk about law of the land and the tribal elders and natives that are the holders of the law of the land, they don't look like us. They have darker skin. They have different facial structures. They look like they are a collected race. Like they all are very similar in appearance, and they are grounded in lore and come from and have a massive history with the land. But imagine if we came from up there and we have been like grounded. We came from up there and forced and grounded down onto the land and like trapped, you can't trap a bird. How do you legally control? How do you control an Airbus? How do you control a bird? Like there's no parameters, there's no borders, there's no the air. Who owns the air? Well, they tell us they own the air now.
They do, but yeah,
they
it's
do.
So much harder. You don't need roads and toll bridges and stuff like this. They can't charge you. Yeah, there's nothing to restrict you that you have to pay to get over when you're in the air, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the thing. I mean, there's so much talk about the sky and everything, all these lofty ideas. So yeah, and all the pointing up, is that what they were saying? We're just powering those dudes, or the cities up there.
Exactly.
Don't walk around here. And because we can't read. That's one of the things we're missing, is we can't read their symbols very well still.
No. Well, there's very, it seems to be like we joked last week that there's where are all the farts and why is there so much art? Because these buildings are gorgeous and the artwork's gorgeous and they're designed beautifully. And, why couldn't they be holding, if they required this technology to support this civilization off the ground, why wouldn't you make it culturally the representation of your culture? Why wouldn't it become your like museums and your art galleries of, the people from that airborne civilization? Why wouldn't you dock and visit the beauty of those buildings? Like it just like we go and visit like our cultural, art galleries.
Yeah.
Why would you not do that?
Well, that's what the palaces and things look like to me. They look like an amalgamation of art galleries and museum kind of things, and then you go walk around in the gardens and you learn all the plants and get relaxed. And but yeah, it doesn't look like anyone was going there to study for 4 years, and doing degrees or any of this crap.
No,
it's more like, like you could fly around and go and spend a week in a city and learn all the stuff and then cruise out again, right? I mean, and because we hear about the sort of what's it called, the gold, I can't remember, the robber barons, in New York, all the houses in New York anyway. But were they really houses? Because we don't hear a lot about houses.
No.
All these big buildings and stuff everywhere. We've got small modern red brick houses, but nothing that's in the grandeur of Tartaria. So they seem to be missing houses. This is the thing, like where were they living, and getting their food and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it does make sense that maybe, they were in the air and as Cal mentioned, to build stars and Nazca lines and all this kind of stuff, even to map out the cities, the way they're mapped out so precisely, it's got to be done from the air.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just like, we always question how they managed to, map out. That is an excellent point, Campbell. Like, how did they manage to map out these gorgeous cities that have lasted, all this time and through all this destruction and through all these resets? It makes so much more sense that they were working from above.
It does.
So much.
I mean, Bernie and I showed a wall in the blue yellow country. I don't know if you can say the name of it, the U country. And it was like hundreds of kilometers with star forts every 2 kilometers and canal systems. When you're talking things on that scale, and these are dead straight, like from Google Earth, they're dead straight lines. You can't do that if you're walking along the ground with a couple of sticks or a piece of string. It's just, you cannot do it.
You can't do it. You can't do it. I'm just showing you the Wikipedia here of these are just some examples of how often floating cities have turned up in literature from like the 1800s onwards, to film and television, like really early things, to the video games. The video games have it everywhere. They're kind of like the steampunk movement, like it's just, it's almost a standard inclusion in video games is these fantasy realms where there's floating cities, and that's just the nature of, the cultures of these games. Like,
which is a good point, because anyone who thinks that we're crazy, well, maybe we are. But this stuff is told to us everywhere, and this is the big scam. People think, but they didn't tell me that in school, so it must be wrong. But they tell it to you everywhere else, right? And so the whole deal is that whatever they're telling you at school is wrong. This is what we say, right? The movies are the truth, and the news is the lie. So this stuff is everywhere. And why would it be? Where did it come from? Even who was the first person to think, a floating city, right? And why did it become a thing? Unless it's based on something, like it's very anomalous, shall we say? It
is, because we always say that they need to show us what they're doing, the truth, in order for the black magic to work. But just to break that down a bit more, like what's actually going on there is they need to present the truth in a way that we then adopt as fiction.
Yes.
Because in order for them, if they don't do that, then what's happening here with our community would have happened a long time ago. So by presenting the truth in Hollywood movies and in science fiction and in video games, we're seeing it. We're assessing that experience, that reality, but we're all locking it away as fiction over fact, which takes it off the table for science, off the table for education, off the table for history. It's off the table because it's now been designated to fantasy.
So you can't talk about it at all unless you're talking about it as, it's not real. It's just, it's a video game or it's a movie or whatever. No one will take you seriously. They've made it. And so again, why would they do that? Why are we not allowed to talk about it?
Exactly.
That these are really the bigger questions, aren't they? Like, what are they hiding, and why? That's once you find out what they're hiding, then that's what we need to find out about.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're looking at back in the 1890s, the 1900s, science fiction writers, and that's where so much of this content is being housed.
Why is it called science?
I know. Well, fiction? Yeah. And where did that genre even fucking emerge from? The cognitive dissonance of the race at the time. It's so incomprehensible. It definitely was an insider's reality. All of this literature was coming from knowledge that was given back and kept from the masses. That's where it's all come. And they have to do that because it has to go into the fantasy. They have to introduce it as science fiction. They have to introduce it because there's too much probably conscious memory still associated to it, too much evidence going on around it. They've got to put it into science fiction.
You've got to make it fiction.
Yes. So when this genre came out in the late 1800s, they are talking about the science behind it, scientific understandings that were far past what had even been released as scientific examination or fact.
It's a good point, because they used to always tell you how they built it, how they worked, and in the old books. Now you see a sci-fi movie and they just do whatever they want. They don't explain it.
Yeah.
Right. But they used to always explain how things worked in these books.
Yep, absolutely. And you see movies I looked at Oblivion last night. That was the one with Tom Cruise in. They're all there's this group, there's this technology that's come down and caused a fucking apocalyptic event, and then they've got these floating cities, and they're basically mining the earth for the minerals in the water. They're got literally mining up columns of seawater to support this race, and that concept of hydrogen. And there was in one of these things I was reading, it actually gave a name for that process. And it was really bizarre, but it's so scientifically factual and so incredibly ahead of its time. If I can find it, it was something, I think I emailed it to you in my excitement last night. It's called spin dizzy. Spin dizzy, weird, right? But this device grows more efficient with the amount of mass being lifted. So it was more effective to lift an entire city than it was to lift something smaller. This is in this science fiction quote story. It was called the gravitation polarity generator, right? And according to the story, the principles contained in an equation coined by blah, 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 blah. came with this blah, 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 blah. All right. So the formula was an attempt to correlate the known magnetic fields of large rotating bodies, such as the sun and the earth. It was, sorry, I'm just reading this quickly. Governing forces between masses. So it's all based on the governing forces between masses, which created electrical charges. And in effect created a magnetic field that could reverse so they're even in this concept, they are talking essentially not of gravity. They're not talking about gravity,
levitation.
They're talking magnetic fields. Yes.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like they don't teach any of this stuff. This used to be in school, they'd teach basic electrics and all this. You don't learn that at all unless you go and do a trade. You don't know anything about it. And the same thing, they then use all the propaganda of, it's too dangerous, don't go near that, you'll kill yourself. Got to get a licensed electrician. So nobody experiments with this stuff anymore. Why? This is the biggest question. Why? We know about all the free energy and everything, but it's really all that tech, across the board. It's just, again, it's like the fantasy. We're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, we don't know.
You're a crazy person.
So, well, let's conceptualize this with the firmament. So we've got we've got all this evidence of these buildings that look very much like they were docking stations, these cities. We've got this innate childhood, energetic, conscious awareness of the possibilities of flying machines, living on flying boats, living in the air, being light workers. We've said light as in the light of light and dark, but what if it's lightness of being, light of weight? Hello. We've all had this sort of, as children, we've all dreamt of flying. Why do we do that? What is astral traveling, if not a conscious memory of the ability to fly anywhere you want to be free? We've all got that going on inside us. So conceptually, if we imagine that Tartarian was a civilization in the air, that they used the ground to support that civilization, they obviously tended to it beautifully and aesthetically, because there are beautiful gardens everywhere, and they're very, but not food growing gardens. No. And then we've got this event that happened, and we've been theorizing, like, where are the bodies? What happened to this amazing advanced civilization? Could it be that there are doorways, if you like, through the firmament to a higher level of the firmament? Like, so it's like a firmament on top of a firmament on top of a firmament. Could this be in alignment with the 7 chakra systems? Could this be in alignment with the energetic bodies? Could this be the, like, do, re, mi, so, fa, la, ti, do? Like that's the note equivalent of the chakras. Like, so if they exited our firmament through doorways, because the atmosphere is just another form of water. Yeah. And we've been theorizing that water is God's source. They pop out the other side, and they're essentially in the clouds, like, of a higher firmament. I don't understand, Campbell, what we see at nighttime when the darkness comes and we see this blackness and star and this whatever we're going to call them.
The luminaries.
The luminaries,
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely told about, they mention doorways in the sky and stuff in lots of, old books, theology and everything. And also on the outside of the realm, they say there's gateways and doorways. But yeah, I mean, what's above us, we just don't know. We theorize it's water. But I mean, if air's water, then what does that mean? It could just be like a thicker air, couldn't it? That's above us. And all these luminaries, luminous things moving about, who knows? I mean,
because
cities.
Because they haven't actually, they've turned off the technology, right? That, we can conceptualize that the Great Flooding was about destroying the technology and maybe destroying the quality of the water. We can premise that the technology isn't working, so it wouldn't essentially support, if that was what it was for, it wouldn't be supporting the same floating civilization today. So we can say, on one hand, that would maybe give us an idea that they are not here anymore. Or on the other hand, we could conceptualize that the density, the frequency band that came to the land, to the grounded earth race, is so low and so dense that we can't visually see them
Can't see
anymore,
them.
and they're still there.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is that they literally teach us what we can see.
They
They
do.
teach us the color spectrum.
They
Color
do.
goes from here to here.
Yep.
You can't see infrared or ultraviolet. You just see from here to here. So that's taught. So what if, yeah, exactly. What if they're just outside that spectrum
Yeah.
and they're still there? You know, because clearly people do see these things.
Yeah.
You know, what are UFOs, right? There's so many strange, you know, phenomena up in the sky that's just everywhere. So we don't know what's up there. We don't even know what the sky is, what the firmament is.
We don't.
It could be a projection for all we know that's hiding stuff that we can't see through. And then there's a whole,
because we say under the cover of darkness.
Under the cover. Ah, nice. Very good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like we have very, and you know, of course, the sky and the ocean are extremely policed. Like there are you can't just go there. You're not free to do that. You can't do it. And when we look at sort of like being stuck on the ground and as you're saying, how we perceive reality, we take in 2 billion bits of information every second.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Our mind filters out much more than it ever lets through.
Down to 2,000 bits of information, and those 2,000s are based on what we perceive, we believe. It's based on
exactly. So whatever you believe is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So if UFOs don't exist, guess what? You don't see UFOs.
Yeah. And all UFOs are essentially Airbuses and flying machines. They just look really boring compared to the ones that we know maybe we used to live in, like the one behind Cambell, as if you wouldn't want to live in that.
Yeah.
So then we looked at this amazing.
The original globe.
I know. I had fun getting some backgrounds organized for us today because there were so many gorgeous ones to look at.
I know. I mean, I've got like a bit of Airbus envy. That one.
I love that.
Man. That pirate ship is awesome.
I mean, but doesn't that make sense to our buildings? Like look at how that works and makes sense suddenly.
It does. And you know, there's a lot of very wide streets in Tartaria, all the towers. And again, why they always drawn as ships? You know, why do we call ships in the ocean ships and then we have spaceships?
Yep.
You know, it's all this. I mean, we just don't know. But it's, as a collective, it's just such a big part of expression, I guess, isn't it? This whole steampunk thing, this whole free, and it's always tied to free energy and all this kind of stuff, and cities that are, you know, like just electric everywhere, but they're not modern, right? They're always these retro cities, but they got free energy and they got all this cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're not suggesting that a civilization that were in the air didn't have problems. Like, you know, every civilization, it's the law of polarity. If we live in a polarizing world, then, you know, if there's war, there's peace. If they can't operate separately, you will always be in one or the other or experiencing both. So like, obviously, you know, there can be all sorts of shit going on if you're an airborne civilization as well. But as far as where we come from and how far we have literally descended or fallen, and if we look at the medieval artwork, the alchemist artwork, the artwork from those really ancient books that we've looked at before, amazing. There's so many pictures and drawings of doorways and gateways and bridges and steps coming down from the sky, isn't it?
Yeah. Some of the old pictures of the old ruins, they're just literally stairways up. And then, of course, the Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel.
You know, trying build up to the sky. And I was just thinking, you know, could there have been, you know, like something happened and the people on the ground, you know, sort of went through a reset or whatever, and then they sort of lost touch with the people in the sky because we have so many stories of gods coming from the sky.
Yeah,
you know, they came down with the sky with all these gifts and all this technology and all this stuff. You know, did they somehow? I mean, did they lose touch or something and then you know, sort of re-meet each other? Just who knows? I mean, it's a lot of questions.
So many questions. So, I mean, conceptualizing a floating civilization that has gone, you know, like if we look at, like, say, Machu Picchu, or like the Incas, you know, there's like the famous Incas who just disappeared. Like, you know, that all these stories of like these civilizations through history, recent history, whether they're real or not, but then suddenly the whole civilization just gone. And I've listened to plenty of channels like talk about the how and why that happened. And they will always say about the Incas that they were taken off on a ship.
Yeah.
Now, when they say that in the channeling community, most people make the assumption we're talking about a spaceship.
Yeah,
and we're talking and aliens, that's right. But in actual fact, hello, Airbuses, flying machines, beautiful ships taken off the ground.
Yeah, and the thing is,
free.
We've got this tech. We know, maybe we haven't seen the ones that look as cool as these, but we know that we can make these. They exist, right? We don't know that we know space doesn't exist. So UFOs coming, a million light years, there's no proof of any of that. Of anything. So this actually is a lot more grounded in reality than talking about aliens and UFOs. Much, much more.
Right. So Cambell, let's think about this logically. Like, how do we go about setting up a premise here? Like, what would we be looking for? Like, if I share screen for a second and go to...
Do you know what? I heard saw another video. They find boats, ships in mountains.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
That's interesting to look at as a clue. I've just typed in town hall towers and just looking at, like, you can see it's the same thing, right? This is a very classic, looking tower here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Like, it's all the way through Tartarian structures, isn't it? These giant, massive.
Got the spires, got the balls, and those balls are really good things to anchor an airship to,
Yep, absolutely. Like, they're everywhere.
And there's no explanation. Like, why would... Because look at the size of these towers compared to the buildings. They're a big chunk of the building.
Yeah.
You have to reinforce the whole building just to get it on there.
Yeah.
And there's no purpose they can tell us apart from, it's a clock. I mean,
like,
seriously.
Exactly. Like, and they're everywhere. These are just all random. Everywhere. Like, everywhere. They're just all random. Like, from the smallest towns, honestly, from all the little country towns, they all have them, to the bigger towns, to the different countries, or the churches, or the cathedrals.
And we have all the lighthouses.
Or the lighthouses.
Like the metal towers, like the Eiffel Tower. There's those things are everywhere.
Like, that's just a cute little one, but they're fucking everywhere.
They're everywhere. And this is the thing. So with some for bigger, ships, and the ones you see on the little buildings, were they just like little, 2-man airship docking places or something? Because, I mean, you can see there's gateways to get out here, and balconies and doorways and stuff. Why? So you can sail around and try and look at the clock that's up there or something. I mean,
everywhere. They're just, and I think I'm just in Australia right now. I know, it's like...
Oh God, look at that. See, look at the foundations you'd have to build to get that tower up.
Yeah.
Look at the size of that thing compared to the building it's on.
I know. But you can imagine like a little Airbus zipping through right there, right? Can't you? Just passing through and docking. Like,
and the reason that's tall, this might also be why they're all different heights. Because, if there's other buildings around, you have to build a taller one, or if it's a bigger ship, right? Where if it's a smaller one, then they can sort of maneuver in and you don't need as big a tower.
Exactly. And like a lot of, I just typed in city towers. Oh, there we go. This is modern day architecture. What does that tell you?
That's a Sydney Tower there.
Let's say,
Point? Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah, that's Centre Point in Sydney. God, I haven't been there forever. All right, I just typed in old city towers to see what came up. See, I mean, look at that.
Look at that.
Why? What sense does that make?
Yeah, nothing at all. You can't use the spaces up as you get up the top. They're all rounded off. They're not usable. Like, it's dumb. And also remember that a lot of these the older buildings with the towers, there was no elevators or anything. It was all stairs, apparently.
Even these really,
even in castles, look at that.
Yeah.
Like, serious, and that's got metal poking out the top of it.
Yeah. Like, they just stick out everywhere. Like, everywhere. You can see the two in this. Yeah, they're just everywhere. Like, and then you've got like these older ones.
I was looking at that one, and that reminded me of, the those two towers that fell over.
Ah, the old,
And we all know that that was a ritual, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what was that? What was that saying?
Yes,
No more
exactly.
towers in the sky. Who knows, right? Was that some kind of thumb letters?
See, they're just everywhere. They're just cut.
Everywhere.
In every Tartarian building almost, you will find a version of a tower.
Mm.
Like always.
Yep. And so many of them have been stripped.
Yeah.
And of course, they just whack clocks in them all. Oh, it's clock tower. It's clock
Yeah.
tower. But I mean, clock towers don't make any sense at all.
No, 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 no.
And of course, you know, a lot of these, they you know, especially the ones that we're looking at there, they look like what they call water towers. A lot of these, they say were water towers, right?
Yeah.
And of course, what's water, right? It's hydrogen.
Yeah.
Oxygen, you can run air. Hydrogen's a fuel.
Exactly. Exactly. I believe that. I think the waters were in some way fuel. I think they were the fuel. I agree with you.
So these water towers could literally just be big HHO reactors. You fill them up with water and you just drop in and you fill up with hydrogen. That's in Germany, that one. Isn't that a cool one? It's got a very strange story. I think someone bought it and turned it into a house or something. But yeah, I know. What the hell is that?
Amazing.
Look at it. And because all that bottom bit, the housey bit in the corners, I think that's an add-on. So originally it was literally just this tall bit up off the ground, like a massive water tower.
That's amazing. Like it really, like, you know, when we talk about steampunk movement and freaking floating cities, and then you actually look at the structures of these buildings, like it's just beautiful and amazing and make total sense because they are the same aesthetic.
Yeah. And this is the one that John Levi showed this back in the 1600s, this town, and it's full of these towers.
Yeah.
I think it had over 1,000 at one point.
That's an amazing town. Where are we?
It's out in the middle.
Yemen. Oh, it's Yemen.
Yemen, yeah. It's out in the middle of the desert, man.
Wow, that's
Look at all the buildings.
Out.
Aren't they cool with all the brickwork around them and stuff?
Oh my God. That's insane.
I know, right? But I mean, look, how did they build a tower that tall?
Yep.
How did they do that?
Yep. Iconic towers is another massive one. Look how high it is over the city.
Yep. So that's where the big airships come in. And then, of course, we have, you know, like the Chrysler Towers, the actual big, you know, Empire State Building. And they got the same stuff. And then, of course, we're not allowed to use, you know, like all this was invented by just people, right? Just floating around in balloons, apparently. But now we're not allowed to do that anymore. And
then, of course, there was, you know, Around the World in 80 Days where they did actually
around 80 days.
I mean, look at that.
That's why?
Why?
Just why?
Why? So,
you know, but if you're hooking up to that and repowering and, you know, you come down and get all your supplies and stuff maybe or whatever, it makes sense. It makes sense as a docking station. It doesn't make sense as a clock tower.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of investment that would be required to just create something so random as that for no reason.
No. And the thing is that would, you know, they have to be built into the foundations. They're not an afterthought. They literally are the biggest part of the building. This foundation wise and everything. So they're not easy to do those things.
Yeah.
And it's like that one we saw inside the building in Melbourne.
This is it.
The shot, is that it? The shot fire. Yeah. But again, on that one, look how far underground it
Yeah, I know. Look at
that.
And
they've actually tried to make it look like they've built underneath it.
I know.
Oh no, we just built underneath it, you know.
Yeah, that's what it looks like today.
But, I mean, again, like the story is they built all that, put all that effort in, all that engineering so that they could drop balls of molten metal down and they would, you know, form into spheres so they could shoot them in guns. Now, Australia never really used muskets. We didn't really have those guns. So why were we making shot?
Exactly. Like it wouldn't even make sense.
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at those. They just look like bloody generators, don't they?
They do. I'm just thinking, what would be another word to use? Let's see.
Recharge station.
Old Realm Cities, probably not.
What did I put in? I think I put in just old city towers or something.
I
What are
mean,
turrets? They're called turrets. That's really on castles though. But look at that one.
and then we've got to also assume that like we're only looking at the tops of these buildings. That's the other thing with the mud flood. Like,
yeah, what's underneath them?
exactly, like these could be going on forever, you know, like this could just be the tops. Like if we look at the sort of some of the steampunk punk fantasy imagery, then you're looking at beautiful imagery where they've got like this layer where they're all the docking of the Airbus, but then like there's three more massive layers underneath this layer, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe the mud flood was about filling it in, like actually drowning it and filling it in. Like maybe that was the only way they could stop this from it. Maybe this is the only way. Okay, so here's a premise. All right, let's so if we were looking at the demise of an airborne civilization, if they relied on the technology from these buildings to support a floating civilization, and then the hijackers came in from under the sea onto the land, which is pretty what we think's happened, and then they systematically went ahead and did everything in their power to destroy the technology that held these cities up. So that would like if it relied on a certain quantity of hydrogen and salt or not salt water or whatever, if you went basically, if you had a power, if we just look at our very rudimentary power stations, if you flood that power station, it will like stop working, you know, like, so if they actually like flooded the realm and from the aqueducts up and under, like actually brought the waters up from the realm, and it was dense water, not the atmospheric water, not the light water, but the densest water, like is ice and our ocean water, right? So and actually flooded the realm, and then something in there created this mud flood where we've got this massive layers, meters and meters and meters. We don't even know how much, like could be fucking 100 meters. We do not know where the earth starts on the ground, do we?
No, it was a good point. Yeah, like, yeah, all these that they showed in a lot of sci-fi movies too, but all these sort of steampunk, yeah, they're very tall cities, aren't they? With these massively tall buildings and sky bridges and stuff. And yes, we don't know how much is buried, but yeah, if you bury stuff and there's water involved and electricity, you just short the whole thing out.
Exactly. So if they were to take down a civilization like this, would that not be what you do? You'd actually have to attack the buildings. The thing that was supporting the civilization.
The energy, yeah, exactly. The power source.
And so if they did that, then they're literally looking, and we're just looking at some steampunk imagery here. See if we can find some. If they literally did that, then the civilization would have had to have fled. So they would have had to have left the realm, or they would have all been brought down. You know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so here's all those same towers. Like, hello, that's what we just look like, right? These are all the same towers. Now, this is just the tops of the towers. They're much more intricate. Look, we've got the same domes. And you can so see how Airbuses would have filtered in and around.
There's one docking up on the side there.
Yeah. You know?
So, yeah, exactly. And look at the depth of that. And we've got pictures, you know, Tartaria Australia logos with these to show that the building's going underground, you know, as another sort of conception. But you know, it's showing us here, right? And I love how it's always in the Victorian kind of era. It's like steampunk, you know, but they got the cool clothes and
which goes to say that that's sort of like the last like functioning memory that we've had running through us is around this era, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, we see everything, right? The music, the art, the clothes, that's so much more advanced and intricate than what we've got now. But we're supposed to think their technology was non-existent.
Yeah.
But they made the best music ever, the best fashion, the best furniture, the best everything.
Oh, hands down.
Even the pictures on their body, the picture frames are just ridiculous from this era.
Hands down, 100%. Let's see. I'm just randomly pulling up pictures here for us to look at, just to get the concept and trigger your memories.
Look at that. Oh, the lady in the front with her umbrella, the dude in the top hat. It's like fully what we're told is kind of, you know, 1850s kind of time. But But we're also always shown these drab black and white. Everyone's wearing black and all the buildings are drab, but were they really?
I mean, I don't know about you, Campbell, but if I was given the option to
That
live,
looks much more fun. Oh, yeah.
to live on a floating pirate ship through the air, hello, I would absolutely take that option. Now, look, that's Paris.
Look at that.
There, we've got an Airbus
Is that
up
it?
there.
Yeah, with a big spotty on it too,
Yeah.
going up to a tower.
Yeah.
Is that a painting? It is.
That is a video game.
Oh no, video game. God, what the hell? That's a good.
Oh, the video games are absolutely. I've never played them.
I haven't played. Yeah, I haven't played.
Me neither.
In years, but
I mean, there's all Airbuses in the air. You can see in the shadows there.
yeah.
So, I mean, like, just the fact that this is so predominant. I like this one.
Yeah.
I saw this one before. So you can see, you know, look, water, docking.
Pirate ship kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean was huge, and he went through a vortex and stuff in that, didn't he?
And of course, we know that they like brought the Zeppelin down. What did they do? They made a big deal about the Zeppelins, didn't they?
Yeah, no, they blew it up, and now no one's allowed to use them because they're just so deadly. You know, one accident in 100 years, and oh my God. And but of course, unless you're, you know, NASA now owns most of the helium in the world, and basically an Airbus is just now you know, like an advertising thing. It's basically a balloon. It's not even an, you know, an airship. It's just a balloon that looks like an airship with advertising on it. That's, you know, that's all they are. So that's all we know they are. But I mean, this is the other thing is when have we ever, you know, known these, you know, deletes to get a technology that's good and to throw it away? They normally get it and keep it for themselves and keep developing it, right? 100%. And what do we see now? We see UFOs and big cigars in the sky.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, and then we, you know, we've got this whole like this whole notion that this was pure fantasy, pure fiction. What's this from? This must be from this is called the Airborne Kingdom.
Airborne Kingdom.
So this is an actual video game.
Oh wow.
That looks gorgeous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so funny that these fantasy video games all draw on the Tartarian structures, like all of them.
And it's very similar to the City in the Clouds in Star Wars. And that's another thing is Star Wars and fantasy are so close, but one's supposed to be the future and one's supposed to be the past. But
and one's in space.
Telling us, one's in space. One doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, and all the Thor, the rainbow bridges and stuff, you know, that's all up in higher realms.
So that's it then. It's our mission at Tartaria Australia to get us off the ground.
All right. So we've been talking about airships for a while. So we want one. We need a pilot to get us to Antarctica. I
mean, like conceptually, if we can have the fortitude of mind to take on board a concept like this and then to actually assimilate it and translate it and integrate it, then we have the fortitude of mind to experience it in reality, to express it. Like the only way, like we have, this has been kept from our attention, if we're on the right path here, Campbell, because, you know, we might be fucking way off, but if we are theorizing somewhere in the vicinity of a truth, of a reality, then there's absolutely no reason why or how they can contain this consciousness any longer within us, and thus this will become more and more provable, more and more obvious, more and more we will get to the bottom of this.
I mean, just looking at the pictures, like we've got all the tech to do this now.
Yeah,
literally, we've got all the tech to do this. We don't have the tech to do all this other crap they tell us exists, like, you know,
go to the moon
and space and go to the moon and stuff. But this, you know, seriously, like we can make air balloons, we can make HHO generators, we can, you know, there's magnetic levitation. Like, I mean, we've got, you know, the free energy. We can literally do this now.
Man, how inspired would the human race be to have the option to live in the air or stay in the ground? It makes me question like all the energy we're putting into New Earth communities by regenerating and reinvigorating the land masses, when in actual
Well,
fact,
they do call, you know, a lot of our books call it the garden, don't they? You know, so maybe it was more a place that you just went down and tended a bit and knew where the food was growing naturally or whatever, and let it look after itself. I mean, these pictures, I mean, they're just so familiar sort of looking, aren't they?
oh, they are. Exactly. Like
There's
you
just
get,
something about them.
yep. It's not, whereas, you know, when you look at an alien, oh, that's a good point, Campbell. When you look at UFO or an alien ship or some form of ET space thing, you look at it and go, that is alien.
Yeah.
Like you literally feel the alienness of that alienness.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
when you look
sure.
at this sort of stuff, you go, oh my God, that looks like our life.
Yeah, that is cool. That one, jeez.
I mean, like, it is not, to me, it is not a giant leap forward to go to conceptualize Tartaria and then to take it to a flying civilization.
Mm.
I
Yep.
just,
I mean, this is the thing, we don't know. That might be the natural state, you know, to live in the air. We've just been taught something different. You know, because they have these things called the jet streams. I mean, all this stuff about, you know, how do planes fly? Where's the fuel? You know, are they just drawing natural energy from the ether up there? So, you know, that this realm could actually be made so that doing that is actually an easy thing to do.
easy thing to do. Like you can see with that drawing, like you could conceptualize that like a lot of these buildings just were flying ships. That's why they're machines. That's why they're technology. And they just landed and grounded themselves.
Yeah, I think I've heard that theory about the star forts.
Exactly.
Just ships, and they've all just hit the ground.
I mean, gosh almighty. I just look at this and go, yep, that looks like familiar to me. Oh, look, there you go. There's a dome there.
Wow. And all these there's a ton of like stuff up on mountaintops, right?
Oh, heaps
Just
on
up in the middle of
mountaintops.
nowhere on mountaintops.
Yeah,
I mean,
heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps.
again,
and heaps.
doesn't make sense, but if you know, bring in the airships, then it kind of does.
And you know, what better way to control a civilization, what's left of them? You clip their wings. Like that's literally the phrase we use, clipping someone's wings.
And then lock them down.
And you break their spirit. You clip that's how you break in horses. Do you know how to break in horses? It's a horrible thing that happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah,
it's the army, but that's what they say in the army. They say they break you down until you're broken, and then they rebuild you in their image, right?
Exactly. They break your spirit. And so they cut your wings and break your spirit. And that's what it feels like has happened to us.
We didn't even mention Peter Pan.
Exactly, Peter Pan. I mean, basically, this one here, I don't know if you guys know about Buckminster Fuller and syntropic. Yeah, this was his innovation. He actually set about to invent a floating city.
Wow.
Yeah. I was reading that. That Wikipedia.
I didn't know there was one in what's that movie? The first movie called Metropolis.
Yes, there's one in Metropolis.
What the hell? I didn't know.
They're everywhere.
I started watching that the other day too, but it was just so boring.
It's boring, isn't it? I know. Agreed. So I mean, I would love these video games to like be like video games.
Yeah, well, but I mean, you know,
be fun to play
what's
them.
a video game, right? It's really just
stepping into fantasy.
Yeah, it's stepping in and getting ready and learning all this stuff and bringing it back into your reality. It might be getting it, you know, getting us ready.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's so true. And you can just so imagine all the innovation and cute little quirky like versions of, there's your background, versions of what it could be, what Airbuses could exist, what little air houses. I think they're gorgeous.
And there you go. That's where they grew the food.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Farm in the sky. But that's the thing. I mean, it would all be, you know, different. Like this whole thing of, you know, all technology is uniform now, isn't it? All cars, all planes are the same.
Oh, how fucking boring is it's transport.
We want mad, crazy professors, you know, building their amazing machines again.
So let me just write in now.
It's interesting they call them mad, isn't it? mad scientists and all this. Why are they mad? They're actually genius.
Yep, genius scientists. So now we go back to our actual reality and like cross-reference.
That's
like
the Gaudi one, isn't it?
Yep. Cross-reference some of the structures that are actually present on our, well, there's this one. Hello.
Yeah.
Like, could that be a steampunk, part of a steampunk fantasy landscape?
For sure.
I mean, talk about an amazing thing. Like, I don't even know what, why, how, what would this be? Like, would this be an amazing assembly hall?
It's a hotel now, but
I
God knows what
know.
it was.
God knows
It
what it was.
looks like a city, doesn't it? Like,
yes. Well, it does actually. It looks like the headquarters of something where you would go and assemble. And then we've got all the castles, same sort of things. They look like giant clubhouses or something.
And they're all just so remote.
Yep, so remote.
Out
so
in the middle
remote.
of nowhere. They don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the story we get is, armies had to go on march for 3 months just to go and go into battle. Right?
Yeah, ridiculous.
Stupid.
It is so stupid. Well, yeah, so there you go. Like,
wow. Yes. What do you think, guys? The floating civilization of Tartaria. We've been talking about airships for a long time, but maybe they were a lot more integral than what we even think.
Yep.
And like we've mentioned, we've still got this phenomena of UFOs and cigar-shaped UFOs and stuff, and we're just not allowed to go up into the sky. We're not even allowed to build. If you built an airship and just launched it, you wouldn't get far. Not at all. So why is that?
That actually tells us something. There is like the military, the band that is like, what is it? Let me just get it exactly. Like, what would be my question there? What is
aircraft or air?
What is air travel out of bounds? Something like this.
What do they call it? Air law or something, but
yeah, like air law. Okay, air law.
Law of the air,
all right. A basic principle of international air law is that every state has complete and exclusive sovereignty over the airspace of its territory.
So that means you can't travel. So you need to get permission to like go from WA to South Australia, even if you're in the air. So that effectively stops people traveling over borders in their own machines.
Yes, exactly. And that apparently that legislation came in 1784.
1784.
It says the earliest legislation in air law was a 1784 decree of the Paris police forbidding balloon flights. Funny is that? A large part of air law is either international law or international uniform law. All right, so this is interesting. Air law, that's a good place to start in actually understanding this. So you have sovereignty over the territory above you, as in the land, but only to a certain level. I'm just trying to find out where. So then it was reiterated in 1919. Under the Geneva Convention on the High Seas, as well as under, and what is high seas? High seas? What the fuck does high seas means? Hello?
Good point.
What's high about the seas? That's under the Geneva Convention on the High Seas, 1958, as well as under international customary law. The freedom of the high seas applies to aerial navigation as well as maritime navigation. Vertically, airspace ends where outer space begins, whatever that means, because we couldn't test that even if we wanted to.
No.
Like countries permit foreign private aircraft to visit or fly. I just want to know what the band is. Let's write up. So
how many balloons were there in 1794?
I know. This is interesting. So let's look at Australia air law. I guess I should screen share this so you're not just staring at me staring like this at the screen. All right. Air Law Australia. Let's find out. Or maybe I should look at the history. Ooh, look at this ominous looking website. Should I press play? Woo! Can you hear that?
Nice little Tartarian building.
Could you hear that?
No, you know.
Oh, how do I do that?
Oh, you've got to do that share thing.
Yeah. Share computer sound. Okay. To share enter your password. All right. I always pause and go, what?
Air Law.
Big. All right. This is some summary.
Australia's first mobile app dedicated to helping you solve your legal problems promptly and at the best price. Whether you're going to court, buying or selling, debt collection, or any other legal issue.
I don't know what that is. I thought it was going to be some excellent history.
Oh, that's just a bloody ad to get money by the looks.
All right. I don't know what this is. So let's go to history of Australia air law. All right.
82, Australia, 1920s. So that aviation in Australia began in the 1920s with
Qantas. All right, let's go. All right, Qantas, eh? The old Qantas. All right, so yeah, it's all a whole lot of mumble jumble there.
It's all about planes too, by the looks of it. So it's 1934. Is that what it's saying?
Oh, I can't even bother to read it. Ugh, that's shit. Let's find some other way.
1930s, and they basically said it came across from England. So
yeah,
not many hot air balloons in Australia. Apparently.
History of. All right, let's go back of air law. I'm so interested now,
man. Like, what the hell? 1784. 1 year after the first hot air balloon flight.
Because there were so many potential for air crashes. Wasn't there? Oh my God, so many potential.
Oh, it's just dumb.
No, this is an interesting thing. Like, you know, everyone watching. Why
would there be laws in the 1780s?
Yeah, I know.
What the hell?
What the hell? Airline law. We don't want airline law. We want air travel. Air. All right, let's see what we've got. So first part of aviation law, I guess.
The thing is, they used to call people who drove ships, we used to be called pilots as well. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Someone who drives a ship is a pilot. So
okay. Not a captain.
No, that's just new stuff.
Okay. What's this? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Pine Online's Air and Space Law database illustrates the history of air and space flight through the programs and people that made these dreams possible. Through the collection, users will see how governments and regulators reacted to new technologies, the accidents and disasters that prompted reform, and the new frontiers that await as technology advances at an improbable speed.
Why did they put 6 points?
While air travel and space exploration share principles of physics, technological advancements, and personal training, they are ultimately separate spheres with their own unique challenges and concerns.
Yeah, because space doesn't exist.
To help users target their research, content collection is organized into suborbital space and orbital space. Suborbital space refers to all aviation matters below orbit. Outer
suborbital.
Space everything matters above and beyond Earth. This comprehensive database includes books dating back to the early 1900s, extensive government documents ranging from committee prints and congressional hearings.
All right. Let's just pause here. So, all right, air law, 1900s. Will that give us something?
Early aviation laws and history collection.
Oh, what? I didn't see you just then.
Historical survey. Air law before the Second World War. Air law prior to 1919 has been described as last born of juridical notions. What? Can be tracked back to its very origin, however, can be traced back to the classical Roman law when the basic problem of rights in the airspace was first noted. What? What problems did the Romans have about airspace?
Yeah,
What
because
the hell?
they were part of a floating civilization.
The Maxim Curious Cardum Cis Ducum. Who owns the land? Who owns the land owns even to the skies.
Yeah.
Has provoked legal discussion ever since. So that sounds a lot like they were trying to stop people flying over the top of them.
Yeah.
Who was flying around in Roman times? It's very interesting. And then it jumps straight to the 1700s. 1784, this was 1 year after the first aircraft, a hot air balloon, constructed by the Mongolian brothers, or Montgolfier brothers. Wow. So
how funny is that? The first regulation for safety in air navigation was made in 1819, requiring balloons to be equipped with parachutes and prohibiting aeronautic experiments during the harvest.
what?
1819.
1819.
At 1908, they enacted the first air traffic regulation. What?
1908. So
they didn't even have fucking light bulbs.
No. And I mean, I don't think they had. When was the Wright brothers? It was around that time. So they're talking just balloons.
Well,
they're not talking airplanes.
I mean, most of the Airbuses behind us are actually balloons, Campbell.
Yeah. So that's what they're talking about, though. They're not talking about aeroplanes for air traffic. They're talking about
balloons,
airships and balloons and stuff.
And hello, the Zeppelin, most of the Airbuses, most of the flying machines we see in the steampunk movement are all balloon-orientated hydrogen.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's only, and then what? 22 years later or something, 30 years later, it was all done. The Zeppelin went down and bang.
Yeah, and like that's it. One terrorist attack on a Zeppelin, and it's like completely illegal. And yet, how many planes have crashed since then?
Exactly. Very good point.
So like not illegal, the planes. Planes with their little curved windows, their little illusionary sense of fucking if you open up a window, you're going to die. Yeah. Like, honestly, if planes traveled at 100 k's an hour, it would be like floating on a pirate ship at space. In the ocean. Like it'd be like that beautiful, the same as being on a boat in the ocean. So in 1908, they enacted the first air traffic regulation, which said that airspace subject to the legal control of the city extended upwards to a limit of 20 miles. So like for 20 miles upwards, you couldn't dock or land your Airbus. The enactment contained further provisions for the regulation of aerial traffic above the city. Oh my God. And recommended the council should, as soon as practicably, purchase an aeroplane to enable them to properly enforce the provisions of the ordinance. What?
How do you enforce stuff in an aeroplane? What, chase someone and go land?
So basically they're saying there was such an issue back in 1908 with air traffic from air balloons that they had to start putting in laws. And one of those laws was you couldn't dock 20 miles above the surface. Hello, the floating cities using the towers. But 20 miles, that's heaps.
That's a lot.
But how weird that they'd have to have rules in there about air buses.
That's
okay. So the first customs regulation for aviation was introduced in 1909 by the French Prime Minister imposing duties on balloons from abroad. Balloons from abroad. So they are actually saying hot air balloons were coming in from other countries.
Yep. And they started taxing them.
Fascinating, Campbell, hey?
That's very interesting.
All right. So in 1910, they introduced the first bill relating to the carriage of airmail.
Wow, 1910.
Wow. And this is it.
What? 1914 aviation decrees were enacted in Brandenburg, Prussia, Great Britain, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, California, France, Austria, Serbia, Germany, Massachusetts, Russia, Switzerland, and Italy.
In
1914. Sorry, I'll shut up.
No, yeah, read. The first navigation company was incorporated in New York in 1865.
What?
And in 1910, an air transportation company began a scheduled service between, in Germany. 1914, air transport services operating St. Petersburg and Florida.
St. Petersburg and Florida.
This is very advanced. So are they suggesting that they were like using hot air balloons with little cane baskets to transport mail around the realm? Is that what this is saying to us?
That's what they want you to picture. But clearly, I mean, they're doing transatlantic flights in airships. Like, I mean, come on, that's a big airship.
There's actually a movie out about an first hot air balloon something now recently.
Is there?
I haven't watched it, but now I'm like, let's watch this shit.
Ah.
The first reported case in the common law referring to air navigation was in 1815. Some Lord Ellenborough expressed a doubt as to whether an aeronaut would be liable to an action of trespass in the suit of the occupier of every field over which his balloon passes in the course of his voyage.
What?
1815. Australia wasn't even conceptualized then, people. I mean, well, Melbourne wasn't. I guess they tried to tell us Sydney was just.
But I mean, not much there. And would check large.
1822. Well, we should be looking at the history of hot air balloons.
Yeah, isn't it? It's funny. They got all those laws pretty much telling us they were everywhere. And then they said for that last law where they wanted to stop balloons flying over, it was because if they landed, everyone would come running to look at the balloon. Now, if there were balloons all through the skies,
exactly.
Laws. I'm sorry, guys. People knew what balloons looked like.
Oh my God, 1891, to 1896, the first treatises dealing with the legal aspects of aviation were published. All right, okay, that's a fascinating document. That's a fascinating concept. We've never looked at anything like this, right? So, hang on, history of...
Oh, don't lose that page.
Oh, don't lose that page, Kelly. Let's go here. History of hot air balloons. Did you follow me on are you on this new page I've just brought up, or do I have to stop sharing?
Oh yeah, no, history of hot air balloons, yeah.
All right, people, here we go.
Albuquerque.
Tartaria.
83.
Aerosat. 15 minutes.
15. The passengers were a sheep, a duck, and a rooster.
That sound like our rocket ship experiments. The monkeys are always sending into space, whatever.
Yeah. Before crashing to the ground. That's not very nice. God. Well, I suppose the rooster would have been okay. I mean, why would you send a bird up in a balloon? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, duck and a rooster. What the fuck? Yeah. You random stupid. What?
It's just dumb, isn't it?
Like a cartoon. That's Disney right there.
Yeah. So that was. So this is the thing, right? That was the first one, 1784. Then 2 years, or 1783. Then 2 years later, they make another one. And then 10 years later, they're making laws because there's so many. But
so many. Let's have a look at some of these.
Just everywhere.
So.
But there's pictures of these back in France, especially back in the 1600s and stuff. Like this big fancy one there. And then they devolve into this bag, right?
Yeah.
But see that one there. Yeah, exactly. That's from like the 1600s. I mean, hello. And I mean, isn't that like a rocket?
Oh,
see the ones underneath it, how the last one you showed, it was, see that?
Yep.
So they pull them down and I guess heat up the air, and when they let it go, it gives them lift.
And don't forget, people, we're talking about the 1700s, and look up what it's made out of. Look at there was no factories printing this back then. There was no, what we're told. They didn't print these beautiful fucking pieces of whatever it is.
Where's the stitching? It shows you every brick in the wall, but there's no stitching in the balloon.
It's just crazy.
Oh, look at this. So that one's got some stitching, but I mean, look how ornate they are and how big.
Just beautiful.
Just being heated up by a little thing. And boats again, always boats.
Yeah, I mean, look at all these. They're just all like I mean, these are now drawings. These aren't how the gold rush inspired aerospace. I mean, you know, what are we looking at here? What is...
That's the thing. They go, you know.
So basically we were pretty advanced with using hydrogen to power flying machines. Like these are old drawings right now.
Yeah.
You know, like this is not an an abnormally is what I'm saying. It's look at these are old drawings and sketches and engravings.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on that they're not telling us about. Look at that. They just give us this story that balloons were just, you know, it's just this thing that never really quite worked, just for sort of eccentric people. And but this, I mean, they even tried to hide the airships. We've seen the pictures of the airships with the restaurants in them and stuff. And they try and tell us, no, it's just balloons, you know, a little cane basket under a balloon.
Look, that looks like a UFO.
That was the first false flag. They were like,
yeah,
UFO under the balloon.
What? It ascends with horse 1798.
1798. They were taking horses up there. What the hell?
Oh my dear lordy lord. Just when we thought we had it all sussed out, like we look, is that a hanging? Oh no, what's this? Hot air war machine. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, what they do, like catapult it into the air.
Throw rocks.
Also all those strange pictures of people flying around on umbrellas and stuff.
Oh yes, and hello Mary
Those
Poppins.
weird ones. And Mary Poppins had an umbrella, but there's lots from the 1700s. Just these people just floating about with umbrellas. It's very strange.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I want to see those photos.
Yeah, just
what would I write in there?
Umbrella flight or something.
Well, see, you guys, you didn't think we'd end up in the hot air balloon aviation laws.
What is that big thing in the ground?
I think that's, well, I was going to say the basket, but gosh knows. Let's see. What did you say? What did you, umbrella travel?
Umbrella, yeah, air travel.
That's random. I don't think that'll give me what we're...
1600s.
Okay. 1600s, you say?
I think so. France.
Oh, there's Trumpy.
From France.
1600s artwork.
What's the other word? Parasol.
Oh, these? Is this a sort of vibe?
No.
That's paintings.
They're modern. They're kind of like that. Like they're kind of like that, but they're old. Oh gosh, where would you find them?
Were they drawings?
Yeah, they were paintings. Yeah, from so France, 1600s, parasol, air travel. Gosh, I don't know.
Anyway,
I probably found them in some old book somewhere.
Fucking random.
When I get my thing, I haven't even had time to get my hard drive fixed yet, though. I need to do that. So I'm still missing a few pictures.
Oh, your stupid hard drive. You know, people, you have not received the video for our live event because Cambell's hard drive is a load of shit, basically.
It was good. It died.
So this is the infamous Zeppelin explosion.
And look how many photos they got of it.
Yeah, they loved it. This was the first synchronized media staged event. So you reckon?
Pretty much.
False flag event.
Yeah.
Like if that does not look like what we think a UFO is.
Exactly.
And look at that. Look, all right, look at the city. Look at the Tartarian landscape of that city and how built up it is and how easily that would have taken air buses. Just crazy. Wow, it's a very slick looking.
We've seen them hooked up to the Empire State Building.
Yeah, we have, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. That. I know. They've just totally annihilated them from our reality.
Yeah. Until I started looking into them a couple of years ago, I just didn't. I remember when I saw the first picture, and I was like, I wonder if they actually could go inside them. And then I found this picture. I was like, oh my God. Because those balloons, that's not a balloon. The half of that balloon that you're looking at, that's people go inside them.
Yeah.
And they're restaurants and bedrooms and all these things in there. In the airships, they used to have like grand pianos and stuff. And
let's see.
Ballrooms and
like as
airship.
Let's see if I can say inside. Inside. Boom. Inside. Let's find a picture.
There's a bit of one, a cross section.
Yeah.
That one there's a bit better. It kind of shows you that, see, the front half is all, so the back half is a balloon bit and the front half is all like 7 stories of living. Look at that. And you can see how much space, like how big these things were.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Massive.
Look at this. Oh, it's kind of not very good.
And now they just show us this little bit under.
Yeah, that's one. That is one there.
That's literally, that's inside one looking out of the window. And as you'll see, some of those windows are open.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's what exactly. Full Tartarian like luxury.
And now think of the cramped quarters of which they put us all like sheep onto airplanes.
I flew in, when I flew to Melbourne, literally you can't move. You can hardly even move your arms.
No, we're just sheep.
And these things, we just...
So much space.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And clearly they weren't worried about turbulence and stuff. I mean, look at this. It's just like a house.
It is. It's like being at a beautiful restaurant.
Yeah. Nothing's tied down, so they weren't getting blown around with turbulence and crap, like all this crap they try and tell us.
Completely civilized. This is one from 1928.
Yeah.
Like that's a dining room. I mean, what? There's a radio.
Yeah.
We've been so
ripped off. They were full on, man. They were awesome.
Wow. I mean, definitely.
Also, trips. You'd go on there and it'd take you, 2 or 3 days to get to where you're going, but you get to look out the windows and see the land below and have a nice time. And so that's the other thing in airplanes. You can't see the ground. You can't see.
Yeah.
So if you're going overseas, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
In one of these, you would know where exactly you were going.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not social, is it? You're basically like, you're put to sleep on an airplane. It's like, right, all the lights go off.
Yep.
It's right. And that's it. You're put to sleep. And now we put in front of TVs.
Yeah.
But how civilized is that?
Yep.
Man.
How cool, right?
All right. Well, at least we're doing our bit for the population. See, this is the sort of shit. When we gather together for the next event, and there's 1,000 of us, and we are doing a big presentation on this concept, which Cambell and I will develop very far by then, we're going to all visually see the reality of the world that we did eventually used to come from and how extraordinary it was.
Yeah.
And once we're conscious of all that, oh, wow, tropical oasis inside old Zeppelin. Oh, it's an old Zeppelin hangar. Wow, that's a hangar.
The size of the hangar.
What is that? Doesn't that just look like the interior of some of these buildings that we have?
Exactly right. Completely oversized.
Amazing. All right, Cambell, my feet are getting sore and I'm feeling a bit tired now. So
I'm a little bit too. What's the time? Oh my God. All righty, so there you go, guys. Tartaria, right? Civilization in the air. What do you think?
Wow.
Yeah, leave us your comments. Because we're sort of blowing our own minds as well as we're getting into this.
Yeah, I really feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer to putting all these pieces together. And I mean, I had no idea, never even thought to look at aviation history or air law history or hot air balloons. Yep.
And airships just hold a thing they just seem to hold a thing for everyone.
Yep.
They've just got this, everyone loves airships, right?
They love them.
Everyone loves them. So there's some memory that we're dealing with as well. That's
very fond memories, fond memories. Absolutely, 100%.
Which is what they haven't been able to wipe. They can wipe what's around us, but they can't wipe what's inside us. So that's why we need to share this information around, guys. So share it around. Make sure you like, subscribe if you haven't. If you are subscribed, make sure you still are subscribed, because they are unsubscribing people, and hit the bell for notifications. And below you'll find 3 links: one for the Brisbane live event on the 22nd of October, the amazing shop full of t-shirts and tribe shirts.
And in 2 weeks' time, there'll be an Airbus one, I guarantee.
And an Airbus. And an afternoon on the green with Kelly.
Social event.
Left.
And also the website address is there. We've made a cute little video on that one. And obviously all the socials, the Facebook, whatever. So amazing, guys. Loved it. I hope you got a lot out of that as well. I think we're working towards something here. So hopefully next week we've got a few more thoughts to add to the equation. I think a deep dive into this whole history of air travel is going to be very interesting. From this perspective.
Definitely.
All right, buddy.
Awesome.
Well, love you and leave you. I'm feeling tired. I want a cup of tea.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have an amazing day, and we'll talk to you all on the next upload.
See you guys. Have a great week.